The following is a summary of the Sicha of Shabbos Parshas Matos Masei Tofshin Nun Aleph. This Shabbos we finish reading the fourth book of the 5 books of the Torah. And at the end of the reading of the double Sedra, Matos Masei, we all shout out in the synagogue, Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. Be strong, let us be strengthened. And it said 3 times. And consequently, the name of this Shabbos, in addition to being called the Sedra of Matos Masei, is also Shabbos Chazak. Now, always the Sedras of Matos and Masei are read in the 3 weeks, between the 17th of Tammuz and the 9th of Av. When we say the 3 weeks, we automatically refer to those weeks of exile and destruction. And so consequently, the concept of be strong and be strong is seemingly incongruent with the descent into exile and destruction. Although one could argue that specifically at that moment of descent, do we need a chizuk? Do we need something which will give us a boost and a strength? However, from the fact that the Shabbos itself is called Shabbos Chazak, we can infer that there's something inherent about the strength of this particular Shabbos. What is it? The idea of strength, chazak, is expressed in Jewish law with the idea of a chazaka. A chazaka means something which becomes established, an established fact. And that is established by its happening 3 times. The numbers 1, 2, and 3 are indicative of that. The number 1 represents something which is one and only, the realm of holiness. The number 2 represents division and machlokas. Hence, there are 2 sides of the argument. It's interesting to note that on the 2nd day of creation, God did not say, and it was good, because that was the day that the sky and the earth was divided. And then the number 3 represents the idea that although you've got opposition, one prevails over the opposition, and there is the strength of holiness in the place or in the face of opposition. So we have here a play out of these different dynamics. You've got in the Sedra of Matos the idea of strength. In fact, the word matter means itself a staff, which is strong. But these are, and this represents strength, Asher Tzivo Hashem, as the beginning of the Sedra of Matos suggests, which comes from above. Then you have the concept of Masei, journeying, or the journeys of the Jewish people, which is the idea of strength which comes from below. The ultimate fusion of Matos and Masei represents a fusion of strength coming from above, a journey from below, resulting in an everlasting prevailing over the opposition. And consequently, that's why specifically at the end of the Sedra of Masei, we say Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek, because the principal manifestation of prevailing over the opposition is when you have the juxtaposition of that strength from above and from below and their fusion. So Matos represents an infusion of holiness from above. Masei represents the dissolution of the enemy from below. And the fusion of Matos, Masei together represent an eternal conquering or vanquishing of the opposition. Now, there are 7 aliyahs in the Sedra of Matos, Masei when they are together. It's in the 4th aliyah that we have the fusion of the 2 Sedras. The 4th person is called up. The beginning of that portion is in the end of Matos, and the end of that portion is at the beginning of Masei. And the idea of number 4, as opposed to 1, 2, and 3, is that 1, 2, and 3 in that progression reminds us that there can be a one and only, there can be the opposition of number 2, there can be the joining of both together, but the full establishment of that is number 4, rather like a chair which has 4 legs to it. So if you want, it is the permanent settlement of that. And certainly when we move on to the number 5, which in the realm of holiness is the idea of being transcendent. This is brought in reference to Paroi in Egypt, who it says that a 5th was given to Paroi. Paroi, of course, has his level in the realm of the unholy, but he also has his realm as everything as reflected in the realm of holiness. Paroi, from the word priya or revealed, is the level where all lights are revealed in the level of holiness, and consequently the level of number 5 even transcends that of number 4. So now we will actually understand properly the connection between Matos, Masei, as they are joined together, the announcing of Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek 3 times, the fusion of the 2 Sedras taking place in the 4th Aliyah, and the connection between the time period that we're in, the 3 weeks. Because when we think about the 3 weeks, we automatically think about the temples that have been destroyed. So you have the first Beis HaMikdash built by King Solomon, which was destroyed after 410 years. Then you have the second Beis HaMikdash built by Ezra and those who came up from the exile of Babylon, which in fact stood for longer, 420 years, although was missing 5 elements that were in the first temple, and both of those were destroyed. What we need to understand is that both are a prelude to the 3rd temple, and that their building and destruction was all part of a descent for the purpose of ascent. In fact, we could correlate those 2 temples with the dynamics which we've discussed previously. The first temple of King Solomon was, if you want, from above. King Solomon, if you want, built a temple, and it was not taking into consideration the situation of where the world was at the time. It was something, if you want, parachuted in or imposed from above. Ezra built the 2nd temple from below, and yet because it was the handiwork of man, it didn't last. The 3rd temple will be a fusion of both of them. It will be both brought about by our actions and at the same time from above, and consequently it will be everlasting. It's Matos and Masei joined together. And consequently, that's always the reason why Matos and Masei comes in the 3 weeks. It will lead to the 4th redemption. As we know, there are 4 Goluyos, there are 4 exiles of the Jewish people. And the 4th redemption from our present exile will move us into that level of number 4, which is settlement and full settlement. And then, according to some opinions, if we don't count the Exodus from Egypt, then it will also be number 5 as well, hence leading on to the level of number 5. And so putting it all together, when we say chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek, at the end of this week's Torah reading, what we're actually saying is, be strengthened in the knowledge that we are holding in terms of history. At the end of the 4th book, we're going into the 5th book, and therefore we are actually holding at a time in history that we are finishing the galut, the exile, and we're moving into a period of settlement when Mashiach will come. And therefore we're strengthening ourselves by saying 3 times chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek, in looking forward very soon to the building of the 3rd temple. Now, this all takes place close to the Yortzeit of Aaron HaKohen, which is on the first day of the month of Menachemov. And Aaron HaKohen's Yortzeit is actually mentioned, unusually, in this week's Parsha, because very few other people's dates of death are mentioned in the Torah. Not Moshe, not Aaron, and not any of the patriarchs. Specifically, we're told that Aaron passed away on the 1st of the 5th month. And unusually, he was mourned not just by the men, but by all of Israel. And the element that came in his merit, which were the Anone HaKoved, the clouds of glory which protected the people, in fact, were removed upon his death and only came back in the merit of Moshe. Why were the clouds specifically in the merit of Aaron? Because Aaron loved and protected all of Israel. And hence the cloud which encompassed all of Israel came in his merit. Aaron had a great love for the Jewish people. It's even mentioned in his name, Aharon. Aleph Hey stands for Ahava. Aleph Hey, Ahava, Reish Rabbah, great love. And the Nun is the bringing down of this great love even to the most simple of Jews. In fact, we know that one of the greatest things that Kohanim do is Birchas Kohanim, the priestly blessing, and that itself is an interesting mixture of both a blessing and a prayer, a bracha bringing down from above, and a tefillah, an elevation from below, and the fusion of the two, exactly as we have mentioned in the idea of Matos and Masei, and that's why it's done principally by the descendants of Aaron, who passed away in the 5th month, as we mentioned beforehand, the number 5 being the transcendent number, and on the 1st of that 5th month, because Aaron touched the essential, quintessential point of unity for the entire Jewish people. It's interesting to note that he passed away when he was 123 years old, 3 years more than a usual person would live until the 120, those additional 3 years representing the number 3, as we've just expressed. So, we have an obvious lesson from this, and that is, as it says in Pirkei Avos, Hevei mitalmidav shel Aaron, that we should be of the students of Aaron, Oyev Shalom, Reidev Shalom, loving peace, pursuing peace, Oyev Esabriyas, loving the creations, Umakarvan la Torah, and bringing them close to the Torah. When it says Hevei, you should be of the students of Aaron, this is not just a nice suggestion, but it's an instruction and empowerment. It's saying you can become and should become the students of Aaron. and not a student of Aaron, but of the many students of Aaron, because all of Israel needs to take this view that a great love needs to be bestowed upon each and every Jew, and we need to always search out and seek that quintessential point of unity that brings us together rather than whatever divides us. Also, in this week, we read in Pirkei Avos, in the Ethics of the Fathers, chapter 2, Rabbi Shimon says over there, Have zohir bikrishma ubitfila. You need to be careful about reading the Shema and about davening. It's interesting that this Rabbi Shimon, he was a person who was engaged always in Torah learning. One would think that he should be talking about being careful about Torah learning. What he's saying is the word zohir comes from the word zohar, which means shining. And he was saying, just like principally you shine when you learn Torah, because Torah sheds light, that light should also come within your reading of the Shema. It should also come within your tefillah. That light should shine whatever you're doing. The truth is, even in Torah learning itself, we have these two elements of Torah from above and Torah from below. It's interesting that there was a great chassid called Rabbi Hillel of Parich, and he used to say that when a Rebbe says a maimer, a Hasidic discourse, it's as if the Shekhinah is speaking through his mouth, and it's as if it was given literally at Sinai, and later on, the Rebbe himself could discuss a point in the maimer, and he could even question what he said previously. The reason being because that discussion was on the level, if you want, coming from below. So we have the two elements in Torah itself, the element of a infusion from above and a discussion from below, the ultimate being their complete fusion. So we have to be of the students of Aaron. We have to always look for that point which will unite us. And certainly in these days, which are sad days, we need to look already for reasons halachically permitted to transform them into joyous days, which is the reason we make siyumim. We finish tractates of the Talmud and make a Yom Tov during these days, even though not necessarily we eat meat, but necessarily we should make siyumim during the 9 days, to use every avenue possible to transform in a halachically permitted way the sadness into happiness. And especially now, when in history we have completed our long and arduous 42 journeys through the deserts of the nations, and we are standing al Yarden Yerichai by the Jordan, about to enter into the land of Israel with the coming of Mashiach. Since we're standing at the tail end of that long, arduous journey, we need just to say chazak, chazak v'nischazek, be strong and get ready for that three-pronged chizuk, the third Beis HaMikdash, which we pray for and we hope will manifest in a revealed way itself in Yerushalayim, in the holy city, very soon, B'Korev Mamash.